You wouldn't build a house without a foundation, so why try to build a business without one? Grow your contracting business and grow your mind with Growth Mindset Monday.
What's up? What's up? What's up? This great nation of ours and you beautiful, sexy, well-dressed contractors. I know you're looking in the mirror right now saying, yeah, he is talking to me. It's a beautiful Monday after another amazing weekend. Weather's starting to turn, starting to get a little chilly. Put that little sweatshirt on or that jacket, that hoodie on in the morning. But it's a beautiful time of year for sure. You guys know the drill. If you're here live, go ahead and drop your name, your business name, where you're from, and we will give you a shout out. We got Daniel, first one up here, Noble Custom Glass and Mirror, checking in from the truck, the mobile office, as we like to call it. Welcome to the show. Well, I had a pretty fun weekend. Last week was my birthday. It was actually on Friday. We didn't do that much for my birthday. Just had the kids over and ate some good food, some good Mexican food. But on Saturday, we took a road trip up to Boise, Idaho. And if you've never been to Boise, it's a fun town. It really is. Not huge by any stretch of the imagination, but a fun town. And we used to live there for a while, so we went back up there and said hi to some friends. And let's see, we got I don't even want to pronounce your name, DSD Trap, Handyman Pro from Brunswick, Jacksonville area. Welcome to the show. We got Freddie, Taylor Medical NYC, New York City, huh? That's kind of crazy. I know there's all kinds of crazy regulations and things that you got to go through, hoops you got to jump through and whatnot in New York. But this last weekend, we ended up going to Boise and had some good food. But we went because I have a good friend of mine that wanted to go to a concert. It was a show, a comedy show. How many of you guys know who Joe Coy is? Jokoi. He's Filipino. He grew up in LA and Seattle, but he's Filipino. And he's a comedian. He's been doing it for like 35 years. The guy is freaking hilarious. Look him up. He's on Netflix. He's got a special. Well, we go to watch his show. And I tell you, it was exactly what I needed. It was an hour and a half, almost 2 hours of him. Like they had a couple guys, come before him, but hour and a half, 2 hours of him. And my mouth hurt, like cheekbones hurt from laughing so much. And those days, I mean, they are so needed, right? Like if you want to feel better, go find something that'll make you laugh. Maybe you don't stick a stick in the back wheel of a kid riding his bike down the sidewalk, but comedy show or go to YouTube and watch a special, right? There's a lot of good comedy out there, but make yourself laugh, man. It'll help you feel better, right? There you go, Daniel. Has anybody seen my keys, Joseph? Yeah, it's freaking hilarious. Vic's Vapo Rub, talking about music. The funniest part, we'll keep this a G-rated show, but the funniest part was him talking about guys and their we'll call it facial expressions when they're in the act. It was quite humorous, but good show overall. But the other thing that happened last week, which was really exciting, was we held our first workshop at the office. Now, this workshop wasn't exclusively for members. So normally we have workshops that are exclusively for members. This was open to everybody. And you can see my screen here. We had our first sales workshop, and we actually helped contractors create a sales playbook. Now, this was the handout that we had, and and all kinds of stuff inside of here. And if you want this, I'd love to give it to you, but you got to come to the next one. It's just the way it is, my friends, just the way it is, at least right now. But we had this great sales workshop. And inside of the workshop, what we did was help these contractors, about 20 of them in the room, create their own sales playbook, right? Now, why would we help them create a sales playbook? Because you and I both know this is what sales probably looks like for your organization. The phone rings, or you meet somebody on a job site, coffee shop, somewhere else. Somebody expresses interest in who you are and what you do. And you say, great, I'd love to come out and give you an estimate or a quote or whatever. Sometimes you're able to schedule it. Sometimes they cancel on you. Sometimes you need to follow up. Sometimes, actually, I should say most of the time, people and jobs and ultimately money falls through the cracks. The reason that they fall through the cracks, and I've experienced this as well, by the way, the reason that they fall through the cracks is because there's no system in place. There's no playbook. There's no, okay, you did this step. What's the next step? Okay, you did this step. Then what's the next step, right? And we really help these guys dial this in. Now, I'm not going to give you all the details of our sales playbook, but I will give you high level some of the things that we went over. You guys cool with that? You cool if we share some of these insights and hopefully give you some stuff that you can take away? Well, we're going to do it for you today. Now, before we get started, I threw something up on the screen here. When it comes to running a contracting business, there are pillars that you have to focus on. Now, you can't focus on them all at the same time. Let's not get carried away and think that, oh, I got to market, sell, run my business, make sure my numbers are good, and hire all at the same time. Not going to happen. So quit trying to make it happen, right? What we need to do is focus. There's time in your week that you're going to be in the business, in the weeds, getting jobs done, shaking hands, kissing babies, sending out invoices, putting estimates together. You're going to have most of your time spent on that, but you have to have intentional time to work on the business. Now, here at the American Contractor Network, we have, as you can see, 5 pillars, but on top of those 5 pillars is one thing, and that is leadership. See, your business will never grow past your ability to lead it. And you're going to have to lead it when it comes to marketing. You're going to have to lead it when it comes to sales, to operations, to finance, and then ultimately to your team. So number one, and most importantly, is you. This is why we created Mindset Mondays, to help you become a better leader, to help you learn more, so ultimately you can be more and you can do more, and of course, make more. So this was sales, right? Sales specific workshop. Now, if I was to ask you what your sales process currently looks like, and you can kind of see this on the screen here. If I was to ask you, what does your sales process currently look like? What would you tell me? And you can go ahead and write it in the comments if you know it. But what would you tell me? Does your sales process look like, okay, a lead comes in either on Facebook or on our website or from Google My Business or from me networking, lead comes in. Okay, now what? Most of you are like, oh, I schedule an appointment. Well, that's great. And then what? Well, then I go to the appointment. Okay. And then what? And then I close the appointment. Okay. And then what? Then I collect the check. Awesome. Sounds great. What you don't realize, though, is how many steps inside of that you're missing. Getting a lead is the beginning of the sales process. Closing the deal is the end. But all those things that happen in between are where you get stuck, right? Because what ends up happening is things start to fall through the cracks, right? So let's say a lead comes in, but what if they call and you can't answer because you're on the toilet or on a job site, right? You're doing something and you can't call them back right away, or you can't answer the phone right away, but you call them back in 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. They don't answer. Well, what happens? Right? For most contractors, what happens is they forget about it because they're not sure who called and they don't even know if it's a lead or not. And then life takes over, work takes over, everything else takes over, and they don't call them back, right? But what if that was a $50,000 job or a $100,000 job, or somebody who wanted to partner with you on the next 10 builds that they're doing? You don't know because you don't have a way to follow up, right? So every step of your sales process has to be laid out. Now, we don't have time here for you guys to, if you're on the job site, in your office, in the truck, for you to pull over, stop what you're doing, and start to write everything out. We don't have time. But I want you to start thinking this way, right? Think this way. Lead comes in. What do I do first? Okay. I contact the lead. Okay. But what if you can't contact the lead? Well, whatever information you have, if they left you a voice note, if they filled out a form, whatever, needs to go into some database, some place that you can follow up with it. Now, lucky for all of you, you have a Contractor Plus account, which helps you organize your leads. And if you're not using it, I highly recommend that you start using it. Because if you're like me and most contractors, we get distracted by the slightest thing. This morning on my team meeting, I have my entire team. We're talking through our outreach strategy. We're talking about what we're doing with clients. We're talking about our next workshop. We're talking about all these things. And my event coordinator, Anna, she's like, hey, where do you want me to post about this next workshop? And as soon as she said that, I was like, off in left field, completely distracted from what it was that I wanted to accomplish. 10 minutes later, figuring out, oh, shoot, I should probably be talking about that stuff again, right? So it happens, right? If you don't have a CRM, and I know it's a fancy word and most people don't even know what it sounds or spells out or anything like that, use Contractor Plus. All I'm saying is wherever a lead comes in from, a face-to-face contact, a phone call, your Google My Business profile, a website lead, whatever, have a singular place for you to keep track of all these leads and use Contractor Plus. You're already paying for it. May as well take advantage of it. Okay, the next thing, right? What do we do when we have a lead, right? The next thing that we do when we have a lead is we have to start to nurture that lead. Yes, I get it. Nurture is a fancy word. Think about it though. You got kids or you got a garden, or maybe you have a kid and a garden. Who knows? But the whole purpose is something starts small. And in order for it to get big, it needs attention, right? You need to pour into it time and energy. That's what you do with your leads. Now, some of your leads are ready like right now. They're like, hey, my pipe burst. I need you to come fix the plumbing today. Okay, cool. Deal with that immediately. But some people, they're price shopping. Some people, they're planning for their projects that 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the road. Figure it out and start nurturing that lead. Now, what do we nurture that lead with? Well, think about it this way. On average, a consumer and or builder, whoever it is you work with, on average, they get 3 to 5 bids per trade. 3 to 5 bids per trade. So if you are one of those 3 to 5 and you're Joe's plumber and you show up and you're like, hey, I'm Joe's plumber. And they're like, cool, Bob's plumber and Jake's plumber already showed up. Like, what makes you different? You haven't spent any time working on making yourself different. And so if you can't make yourself different during this conversation prior to having a conversation with them, they're not going to be able to tell the difference. And then they're going to do like everybody does on Amazon. Well, this one looks the same as this one. Let me just price shop. And a price shop is a race to the bottom. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You've gotten those calls where somebody's like, well, Johnny can do it for $200 cheaper. What about you? And they're price shopping you, right? Because you haven't done a good enough job of putting yourself in a position where you're valuable beyond just price. Again, separate conversation. We can talk about that later. But start to differentiate yourself. Start to build that trust. How many of you spend time or energy getting to know your client or helping them get to know you, right? I'm going to pause real quick. We got a couple more folks here. Matt Bowen, Douglas, Georgia, start to finish. Welcome to the show. We got Elevate Plumbing out of Chi-Town, Chicago. Welcome to the show. So spend some time letting them get to know you. Now, a very simple way to do this, if it's you or for salespeople, get your phone out, shoot a quick video. Hey, Mrs. Jones, this is John with ABC Plumbing. We're super excited that we're going to be able to meet you tomorrow. I just want to show you around. Here's our office. Here's Mary, my assistant. We've been in the business 34 years, blah, blah, blah. Like a 30-second, 1-minute video for them to get to know you. Now, when you show up at their house, you're not a complete stranger. And it's going to make a difference, right? So again, what are you doing prior to the sale? Now we talk about the actual estimate, bid, visit, whatever you want to call it. When you sit down or you go to a house, how much of that time do you spend actually getting to know your potential client? Or are you just like, okay, so we have option 1, 2, or 3. Which one do you want? And they're like, I just got to know you. Like, what's going on here? Why are you trying to sell me already? If you don't buy today, this special's out the door. It's like used car salesman. Ew, nobody likes that. My invitation is spend some time, 5 minutes, getting to know them. Why? Number one, they don't care about you because you haven't shown that you care about them. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but I'm telling you that that's the truth. Every time I meet with somebody, I get to know them first. It shows them that I care. Even with the people that I know, I always start off asking them about their weekend or their family or sports or business or something related to something, right? Show them that you care. The other thing that it does is now you have what I like to call ammunition, okay? They're telling you why they want this project, why it's so important, why now. They're talking about their family and their kids and everything like that. And so now when you get to the point where you're actually going to pitch your product or service, you have things that you can put inside of there, right? So let's take roofing contractor, for example. A lot of you roofing guys are like, there's damage to your roof. Your insurance will take care of it. Well, congratulations. You and every other roofer are selling the same thing. But if I spend time with the homeowner and I find out they have 2 small children, and I've done my research and I know that the rate at which black mold multiplies, and I know what black mold can do to a child and their health, then I'm going to bring that up. Because at the end of the day, the homeowner doesn't care about dents in their shingles. What they care about is the health of their family. And if you can't make that connection, you're probably not going to get that job. Daniel says, I like to get them talking about themselves and be sure to use their name. 100%. Again, get to know them on a personal level. That's great. Okay. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of your presentation, whether you do an initial just gathering of data and then come back later, or whether you're, close there on the spot and you use this software that shows the measurements or the paint colors or whatever the thing is. I'm not going to get into that. That's for a different conversation. What I do want to get into, though, is this at a high level. As you can tell, yes, I know it looks like a wagon wheel and no one's ridden a wagon for 150 years. Totally get it. This is called a wagon wheel because we like to equate it to what we call the objection wheel. Now, what is the objection wheel? Well, obviously I don't have it filled out because I don't want to give you everything. If I give you everything, you don't do anything with it. Okay. The objection wheel is how to overcome objections in a sales conversation. Okay. So at a very high level, you say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, the cost to replace your water heater will be $500. And I know it's an estimate. I'm just saying $500, right? Oh, that's a lot of money. Okay. That's a concern. Oh, well, I need to run it by my wife. That's a concern. I need to think about it. That's a concern, right? So ultimately, there's going to be some type of concern. Your job is to hear the concern, not stress out about it, not freak out about it, not try and find something to overcome the objection right away. It's literally to hear the concern, right? Now, if you guys haven't read the book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, he used to be an FBI hostage negotiator. It's a great book on learning how to communicate properly, how to talk to people, which in sales, you need to learn how to talk to people. So number one, right up here, is going to be listen. Listen to their concern. And you're going to have to sometimes get to the bottom of it, right? How do you do this? Not by talking, but by asking more questions. So if Mrs. Jones says it's too expensive, awesome, Mrs. Jones, I completely understand. Let me ask you before we continue. Other than price, is there any other concern? Quality, timeline, anything, right? If there is another concern, they'll let you know, right? But your job is to get to the root concern, the root objection, if you will. Okay. Now, The second part of the wheel, or the second step, if you will, is to empathize, I should say, if I could say that word right, empathize and answer, right? Mrs. Jones, I totally understand what you're saying here. There are a lot of people that we work with that feel the exact same way, right? So don't have them think that they're the only ones that are thinking that way or that are feeling that way. Now, what's the best way to overcome objections? I'm going to tell you, you can read books like this, which I recommend reading. This is the book I'm reading right now. It's a really, really big book by Sabri Subi. There's lots of books that talk about strategies, but again, very high level. The best way to overcome an objection is to tell a story. We are storytellers and we love to listen to stories. That's why we watch movies. We go to sporting events. That's why we like, I would say the theater, but there's not that many people that like the theater. But that's why we like stories, right? Like we love when people tell us stories because that's how we learn. You can tell a story, right? And it can be about a past client, right? Mrs. Jones, totally understand. You're not the only one that feels that way, right? That things are too expensive. Well, we were with Mrs. Smith the other day, and she had that same objection. But after talking to her for a while about why she wanted it, she wanted to take care of her family, make sure that they weren't ingesting these harmful chemicals. She realized that it was actually a valuable thing for her, and she went ahead and got the water heater, right? You're telling a story that's related to them and how this other person overcame their concern. Okay. Now, the next step is move on and add value. Now, how do you add value? Well, you can add value any of a number of ways. You can add value by including something different or additional, by lowering the price, which I only recommend if you have raised your price properly on the front end. You could say, Mrs. Jones, I totally get it. It's super expensive. What we can do is we can add for free, no cost to you. We can add our 10-year warranty to this water heater, right? So boom, now you're adding something additional of value that they could use that would be valuable to them, right? And then what? And then you go back to the beginning and you review the whole process. So this is how it would work. We'd come out here and, our technician and blah, 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 and replace the water heater, take about 4 hours, clean up after ourselves. You're reviewing it over again. And then what? Then you ask again. Okay, Mrs. Jones, here's the price. Here's what it comes with. Are you ready to proceed? Are you ready to get started? When do you want to get this thing installed? Right? And then the wheel is called a wheel for a reason. It just keeps spinning. It just keeps going, right? So that's a very simple way for you to start to overcome some of these objections that you're experiencing when you're dealing with homeowners or when you're dealing with contractors, so on and so forth. Does that make sense? Pause, wait. Yes. Yes, it makes sense. Okay, listen, last thing before we get rolling. This is what you need to understand, right? And we talk about this as well. I'm not going to get into the marketing conversation now, but understand this. If you are a contractor, you live or die on your leads, period. So as much as you want to focus on sales, that's great, but you need consistent leads coming in the door. What you need to do is identify what your main source of leads are. You need to identify all the different ways your customers can get a hold of you, your follow-up routine, how you're keeping track of everything. And you need to include this as part of your sales process. Because at the end of the day, it's not their job to follow up with you. It's not their job to ask for a quote. It's not their job to figure out how much it should be. It's your job. Okay? Use the tools that you have in front of you. Contractor Plus gives you the ability to put all of your potential leads inside of there, to follow up with them, to give them customizable quotes, to have them sign contracts, make initial payments, everything you need to do to close more deals. Your job then is to take advantage of the opportunity in front of you. Take advantage of the things that you've been given. All right, that's all we got for you guys today. Take this information, go plug the holes in your sales process, go close more deals. All right,